Hi, my name is John, and I'm your host for Dairyland Frights. You know, all my fans out there, we love you. This is the paranormal podcast about everything creepy, mysterious, and spooky in the Midwest. And guys, you have a special treat tonight because I love my fans and I love my spooky friends. I'm super pumped to have my very special guest with me, Larry Eissler. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yep.
Larry?
It sure is.
Okay. And Dan Norvell. Is that correct?
Close enough.
All right. So they are real live paranormal investigators from Expedition Entity. And I highly recommend checking out their video on YouTube. And you guys can tell them, obviously, where else you can get, you take a look at the videos and all that good stuff. And I'm going to make sure, my spooky friends, I put them all share on social media. So you guys can check these guys out because they're just really, really good at their jobs and some really spooky stuff. So let's get right into it. Dan or Larry, whoever wants to go first, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what interested you in the paranormal?
Go ahead, Dan.
You always throw this on me. So when I was 13, I was walking up to our local record store in the little town in northern Illinois that I grew up in. And the town that I grew up in has been around since the 1850s. And as I was walking up there, I noticed a shadow figure on the opposite side of the street keeping pace with me. And he appeared to be in a drover's coat with a hat. And as we advanced further, we got to the edge of a building, and he stopped at the edge, turned, and went right through the wall.
Wow. Was this like, excuse me, Dan, is this guy like the Hat Man? Are you talking about the Hat Man or just a shadow person?
It was a shadow. But, the other side of the street was dark. Maybe he was a full apparition or a full person. Because when I see ghosts, I don't see apparitions. When I see something that looks just like you or me. But he was in shadows, so I got to call him a shadow figure. And, our friend Diette interviewed me last week, and we talked about this subject, and I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told her. I think it was a residual thing I was observing, and him keeping pace with me just was probably coincidental. And I think that in his time, he turned and walked into a house that was probably sitting there back in the 1800s.
Sure. And how old were you again, Dan? I'm sorry I missed that.
I was 13.
13
years old.
Wow. That's a heck of an age to see that, because that's really at a point where, you're younger and stuff and you're really susceptible to things, whether it be the paranormal or whatever it might be. So that's really cool. I love that. Larry, can you top it?
I might be able to. I'll leave it up to you if I top it or not.
Okay,
so,
right.
My parents, they owned an original 100-year-old farmhouse. It was my great grandparents, and then it kind of rolled down the family, right? When I was in diapers, they built an addition onto the house, but they still kept the main farmhouse as the core house. So all the bedrooms were added, and I was in one of the add-on bedrooms. As a young child, I refused to sleep in my bedroom. Completely, totally refused to sleep in there. I would actually, and it's a little embarrassing to say, but it's the story. I would sleep in the hallway. I'd grab a pillow and a blanket, and I'd sleep in the hallway. I would not sleep in that room. So fast forward a bunch of years, and I'm in high school now, and I'm stubborn, and you know how it goes. So I say, I'm sleeping in the room now. And I essentially forget why, apparently, because I'm just sleeping in there now. And my parents had built this really awesome bunk bed. that, I'm 6'2", so it's tall enough for me to stand under because the under part is a desk. So, the railing for this bunk bed is probably every bit of 7 feet high.
Yeah.
And then it's a 7-foot drop to the ground. So this was back in the day where
drop.
Right. This was back in the day where there was those 19-inch box TVs, and I had one crammed into the corner on a shelf, and I'm laying there in bed watching TV, and this little boy in a red coat does this to the railing and peeks over the 7-foot railing.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, I start remembering why I didn't like sleeping in that room. So, teenager, I'm stubborn, didn't stop me from sleeping in there. And there were times I slept with the light on, which seemed to make it harder to see him. So, that was my workaround. Eventually I joined the army. I left the house, stayed gone. I lived in Rockford, Illinois, which is on the other side of Northern Illinois for many years. And once I start getting into the paranormal, it's Facebook, I'm posting about it. Everybody's starting to realize that I'm doing it. And my sister starts asking me questions about the little boy in the red coat that's in her room. Because my sister had moved into my old room. And then as I started sharing this story, she starts going, yeah, I still see him. He's still there. So now my son stays in that room. And he has experiences nothing. I don't know if the boy moved on. I don't know if he's in a different part of the house, but there's nothing going on there.
I have 2 questions for you guys, but before I get to that, have you ever heard about the haunted or bunk bed from hell? Have you ever heard that story? The possessed bunk bed?
No.
You haven't? Oh, okay. I'm going to share this really quick, and then I'll send you guys a link because you're going to love this. Okay. So in Wisconsin, do you guys remember Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack?
Yep.
Yep, I do. Coming in the trench coat. So. No, Larry, no, too young. So.
He's too
Dan
young.
and I know.
Well,
we know.
I'm a little on the younger side. Dan's old enough to be my dad.
Before you go on, John, it's because the reason Larry's boy doesn't see the ghost is because he's not a sissy and Larry was. Sorry, I had to get that out.
See,
it's fair.
That's fair.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had to.
No. So this is, I am not joking. Go on YouTube if you don't believe me. Unsolved Mysteries in the 1980s. There was a story on Unsolved Mysteries about a bunk bed from hell. And what this guy, and this is crazy. Okay. So this family in Wisconsin, they bought this bunk bed from just a secondhand.
Remember seeing that. Yep.
Okay. Right. So the kids saw like an evil, like witch-like figure that would do what that little boy did. And then she would stand in the corner and this bunk bed would like go on fire, but it wasn't like burning. It was just like, like CGI fire in a movie, right? Looks like it's fire, but it's not. So long story short, these people who the family eventually just booked it out of there, right? But here's the catch. A lot of people thought, this is my favorite story about Wisconsin. This is perfect about Wisconsin. So a priest, really wasn't a priest, tried to exorcise it. He was just a drunk guy from the bar. So he tried to exorcise it. He made it worse. Okay.
That sounds very Wisconsin.
Yes. Yeah. And then people would actually just pound on the door and just be like, let me see the bunk bed, show me the witch, show me the other stuff. So this is the family finally got the heck out of there. And this bunk bed, nobody knows where it is. It just disappeared and it is into this mist of time. Nobody knows where this bunk bed is. And the other thing is, which I think is more funny, is everyone's like, well, what happened? Like, did this, like, the devil make it? Like, why a bunk bed? And you see the bunk bed, I'll send it to you guys. If you see the bunk bed, it's made by, like, your dad. Like, if your dad made a bunk bed, like, oh,
My
I'm in the
dad
garage,
did
I'm
make
making a
my bunk bed.
Right. It's exactly like that.
He did.
So
Maybe it ended up in your house, Larry, and that's why you then saw stuff.
There you go. Yes, because a
Maybe.
little boy would go into the bed with you. So he would like spoon with you. For lack
I
of a
can
better
say
word.
that didn't happen.
Oh,
Liar.
There was no spooning of the undead variety.
Whatever.
As a teenage boy in high school, there was other spooning, but not with ghosts.
I can tell right now he's lying.
Who doesn't
Don't
like a good
give
ghost
away the
spoon?
secret sauce, Dan. Come on.
So here's the thing. Both your stories, I'll start with Dan first. So you did it. This wasn't a residual haunting. In other words, you went out the next day to get some candy and you walk out and here's the guy again, the shadow figure. It was just a one-time thing, right?
It was a one-time thing.
And Larry, yours
Mhm.
was that coming up like 3:00 in the morning? You'll turn over and there's that little boy peeking. It was something like residual hauntings.
Time wise, it's hard to say.
Pardon me.
You know,
Good God.
in high
Sorry.
school, I was a night owl. I'm a night owl now. Nothing has gotten better, so I still get no sleep. But you know,
Okay.
it was every bit of after midnight. That's the only thing I can confirm as being consistent. So
Yeah.
being after
Okay.
midnight, and then you know, as far as I could tell, he was grabbing onto the railing,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't exist in there prior to it getting built there for me. So
Okay.
I'm under the assumption that it's intelligent. Also, because when he would grab the railing and peek up, he wouldn't do it in different spots. It was always directly across from my face.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's
and he would look straight at me. So I'm thinking it's intelligent.
yeah.
Are you
Yeah, that
are you
would've-
sure it wasn't like the Kilroy was your thing?
The nose didn't flop over the
No,
bar.
it didn't flop
okay.
over.
I just wanted to ask.
Did
No.
the
Unfortunately,
boy have hair?
there was hair. There was dark brown hair and a red coat.
Okay, there we go.
I couldn't tell like a complexion of the child. It was light skin.
Okay.
But that could
Yeah.
just be, you know, a grayish phantom white skin. But the railing was wood. It was like 2x6s. So I couldn't tell if he extended beyond the railing or if it was just hands and face.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know,
Was
when
there
you're like 2 feet away from a face doing this in front of you, it's kind of creepy.
It's damn creepy.
Yeah.
Was there any marks from the kid? Yeah, because sometimes people say like there's scratch marks or there's fingerprints or there's something that was left by the entity or whatever spirit.
I wasn't smart enough back then to even look for it.
Okay.
So, you know,
Gotcha.
it was my introduction to the paranormal, but it wasn't my introduction to investigating.
Gotcha.
So, you know, I didn't really even get into the paranormal until every bit of 2010. So this would have been, you know,
well,
6-7 years after this event.
Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Which even when
That's
I
really
got into the paranormal, it was like 6 months later where I met this guy, and then all of a sudden now we're filming a
there
TV
you go.
show. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
things have just exploded.
That is great. That's great. So we're possessed.
Well, I don't know what was happening, but it was kind of funky.
The boy. It's the boy calling.
Yeah.
Let's set facts straight.
He was getting down with that early 2000s disco electronic.
So, guys, tell me about your show. Tell me about what my spooky friends, when they go and view your show, what are they looking, you know, what do you guys cover? Things like that. Kind of give them an idea of what they
Dan's the show creator. So it was, even though I do all the work on the editing and the filming and stuff, it's actually his idea, and what the show represents was thought up by him. So he'd probably be the best to give that rundown.
So
I'm just gonna keep handing stuff off to him and be like,
so Larry and I had been investigating together for a while, And I think, what was it, 2013, I think it was 2013, to be honest with you.
We started in 13. We started posting in 14.
Yeah. Which he and I had been working together for 3 years at that point. I approached him and I said, look, I want to do a show. And I want the concept to be, we go to the less well-known places and prove to everyone and ourselves that any place can be haunted. You don't have to go to Waverly Hills. You don't have to go to, what was another big one at the time? Well, Mantino was around when we were there.
Waverly, Eastern State,
Ohio State
prison.
Reformatory, all the
Ohio
big
State
stuff.
Reformatory, yeah.
And as much, to be honest, John, as much as I'd love to go to all those places, I don't need to go and prove to myself they're haunted, because a lot of people I trust as investigators have already went there and said, "Dan, it's haunted as hell." I just want to go there to be there. I don't have to investigate. I don't have to prove anything because I trust their opinion. It's haunted. That's fine. So when I came up with the concept, I was like, I want to show that, hauntings are everywhere and we can find them anywhere and everywhere if we just take time to look.
Sure.
And, so Larry and I, he said, good idea. So let's do it. And we started out with a Nikon camera that shot 720 HD film and
no,
and
we started
mini
with the
DV.
Oh, we got it correct.
And a mini DV. Well, the mini DVs were for the night shots, but we shot all the other stuff on the Nikon.
Yeah.
And
God,
we thought we
horrible.
were pretty hot stuff. And we went to one of the Black Hawk War sites and up in unincorporated Kent, Illinois. And we shot our first episode of Expedition Entity there.
Yeah.
The only thing that we caught was a voice, and it came over the camera. It did not. Now, Larry and I were running two EVP recorders, and we were actually running something else as well, but I think it was one of the other cameras, just because Larry wanted an overall shot to bounce to. So he was thinking about bounce cams even back then. And he was recording me with the Nikon, and I said, "Where are you from?" And a whisper came across the camera audio, nothing else. And it whispered, "Kent." And now I can hear Kent pretty clearly. Larry doesn't hear it, Kent, really clearly. He thought maybe it was, some Sauk language of some word. But to me, it sounded like Kent. Now, we did put it in the episode, and hearing it in the episode, you can't discern anything. But hearing it from the camera recording that I had, I could distinctly hear Kent.
Nice.
And
so
the rest is history. I mean, we're now where we're at.
So are you guys, and I hate to bring this up, but I have to, because these guys are icons, I guess. But like Ghost Adventures, one of the things I don't like, and I talked to one of my last guests, is they antagonize the ghosts. They're like, "Hey, ghost, get out here. How do you guys do your investigations? Like, tell me kind of a process."
We do not provoke.
Go ahead, Dan. You're the lead investigator.
We do not provoke.
Okay.
And
why?
And
why don't you do that?
Here's the thing, John, is I'm a correctional officer, and I have been for 17 years. Before that, I was a firefighter and a paramedic. I was a paramedic for 6 years, spent 4 of those years in Chicago. And one thing I've learned over that whole span of time is about respect. And you don't get any respect if you don't give respect. And, sometimes Larry and I are walking into this spirit's home. To them, it's their home. And all I can tell you is if somebody walked into my home yelling, "Hey, get out here and talk to me," I'd be shotgunning them off my front porch.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Larry's and my approach is always maintain respect, always be respectful. And I got to tell you, in the 13 years we've been working together, Larry and I never have an issue communicating with spirits.
was great.
No, we actually went out today and had some pretty good stuff happen.
And communicated with spirits today. No problem.
Yep.
I'm going to quote my friends Chad and Travis from Greg and Rockford. They said this, and it applies to Larry and I too. We could go and investigate one of those pop-up toilets that they put at a fair and probably get activity.
That is awesome.
The ghost of dinner past.
Yes.
Ooh, he had some really bad beans. What's going on with that?
Yeah.
Some chili. So tell me about, and Larry, I would love to hear about this too, where you guys had such an experience, it like shook you. Like you got home and you were just like, what was that? Like, what happened?
I think Larry will agree with me, but I'm going to let it, I want to see what he says before I say.
So,
okay.
It doesn't take much to really shake me.
Okay.
And nothing has had like a lasting effect. So it's always been kind of like, whoa, that was really intense. Yeah. And then go back to work. So the one that really kind of hit me the hardest, we were at Broadhead Manor in Broadhead, Wisconsin. And if you've ever been there, it is a 60,000 square foot abandoned middle school. It's just huge. On the first floor, there's a janitor's quarters, with the furnaces, the electrical panels. That's his area. We were in his area, and it was Dan and I, and at the time, our new cast member, Jen, and we were showing her the building because it's one of our favorite spots to go to. And the first episode of the season she was joining us for, we were going to go back. So we were like, hey, come check it out with us. It's going to be great. So the janitor doesn't like women. Very old-timey janitor from the heyday of the building when it was closer to being built. Just not a fan. So we're doing an SB7 session in his whole area. And Dan goes, Jen, would you like to ask some questions? Prior to Dan saying this, we're getting great responses. He's talking with us, or somebody is, and very clear responses. As soon as Dan says that and Jen starts asking questions, the responses start getting a little mean. They don't want us here anymore. Well, I'm standing in front of the door of the sub pump room, which that's the janitor's main space. Like, no one's allowed to go in there. We can go everywhere else, but we can't go in that room. I'm standing in front of the door, and all of a sudden, I feel hands on my shoulders gripping so tightly, it locks my back up, it locks my arms up. All the hairs on my arms are standing up. And are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the ghost box goes, fucking leave. And at the moment, I'm locked up. Like, I'm trying to process the pressure on my shoulders, the fact that all of my muscles are locked out. All the hair on my arms are standing up. And Dan goes, it just said leave. We need to leave. And I go, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. That's all I can say. And he's just like, I know, let's go. And then I'm just like, I don't like this. So
if you don't like this, let's get out of here.
We leave and we talk about it, and it was fine. But I still go in there. We have to film. I'm gonna go in there. But when I do, I'm like, hey, please be nice to me. I promise I'm not gonna stand in front of your door. That's probably the most intense that I've experienced. Now, I've also watched him get dragged over a chain link fence.
Whoa!
By the arms, which is also pretty intense, but it didn't happen to me, so I don't know if it's my story to tell.
How did that happen? So, a long time ago, Larry and I had only been, this is before Expedition Entity days. We had our friend Marcia from Chicago, Ghost Hunters out. And it was me and her and Larry. And we were at the cemetery that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. if there's a cemetery in the middle of nowhere, Larry and I'll find it.
We're going to
So
find it.
we were there, and Larry and Marcia was doing a ghost box session. Pardon me. Larry is filming her with the mini DV.
Yeah.
And I'm standing over, we're outside of it's actually connected to a church, so it was actually a graveyard. There's a chain link fence around it, and I had my arms up over the chain link fence.
We came to call the church the creepy church.
The creepy church, because we've been back and other things happen. So anyway, all at once, I feel something grab my arms, and whoop, I go over the fence. And you can see on the video, because Larry gets it, you just see me get yanked in. You can't see anything grab me.
He's just in the background of the video going, whoa.
Yeah, and you can see that I don't use my legs. I don't heft myself. I get yanked over the fence. And it was funny because both of him and Marshall look over at me and go, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm getting drug over a fence. For the next 4 hours, there were red marks of handprints, and they were human hands on my forearms, and they had drugged me over.
Wow. That's intense. That's really intense, because
it was
one of the biggest things is it takes, as you guys know, so much power for that entity to do that.
Sure.
It's got to use its energy to do that. It's not like you or me and we're screwing around and I grab your arm and you're like, okay, this takes immense power. I mean, think of the power it had to gather to do that. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, and you know, Dan's, it is what it is. Dan's not a small guy.
No.
If I were to try to do that, I physically could not do that.
No.
And I fully believe that if his lower body didn't get caught on the fence, he would have been right over into it.
Yeah, I almost made it in.
They wanted him for.
Yeah, I almost made it in. So,
wow. I don't know if you guys can top this, but I have to ask this question too. Have you guys ever brought a spirit home? Have you ever came home?
Well, that was the second trip to
who's
the creepy
eating
church.
my Cheetos and drinking my beer? What the hell?
You know what? I got to be honest with you, John. If it was only eating Cheetos and drinking my beer, that would have been acceptable.
Okay.
Yes, things have followed us home.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So do you guys have a good story about that you can share?
Yeah, Dan certainly does.
Okay.
So same place, that same cemetery. We tempted fate and we went back several times. And so one night, we were there, and it was Larry, me, my good friend Craig, and my nephew. And I think my sister, she was back from Oklahoma at the time, and
Julie and Matt were with me.
Yes.
Craig wasn't there.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
It was the four of us. Craig wasn't there.
Okay, maybe Craig wasn't with us that time.
No.
Anyway. Okay. Oh, we had Craig's car.
Yeah.
He had loaned me his car. So anyway, they went up to the church, and I was feeling sick. It felt like something had. I felt like I told Larry. I said I felt like I had a target on my back all night. So I said, "You guys go ahead. I'm going to stand back here by the car and just keep watch." So they walked up. The church is sitting there. There's a driveway between it and the graveyard. And they were on that road between the graveyard and the church. And they were taking pictures and running video. And down in the basement of the church, all the windows were clear. And they saw somebody staring out at them. And then up in the upper window, they saw a figure of a woman come walking up to the window and look out at them.
2 figures.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2 figures. So they're all excited and they're making it back to the car.
Sure.
And by this time, I'm getting ready to start retching. It's that bad.
Oh boy. Okay.
So by the time they get back there, they're all excited. Oh my God, we saw this figure here. We saw this figure there. My nephew was about 17 at the time. or no, he was younger than that. But anyway, Larry grabbed him and said, let's get the hell out of here. We don't need to tempt fate. Well, we'd already tempted it because I went there when I wasn't feeling well. And lo and behold, bam, during that sickness must have been when it attached to me. Mm-hmm. So as we drove away from the cemetery, I started feeling better and better and better. And finally, we got about 3 miles away. I was fine.
Yeah.
So over the next month, something was tormenting my daughter. She was seeing a shadow in the room every night. Larry and I tried to film it. I called him immediately and told him what was going on. Mysteriously, the camera that I would set up kept getting turned off. And I had a pretty new son in the house at the time.
Okay.
So, we decided that, it was an attachment. And when it really showed itself to me, and I'm empathic. So, I'm not sensitive, I'm not psychic, but I'm empathic. Oh, yeah. And sometimes, little things get thrown into the back of my head from spirits, a name or a phrase or something or a feeling. Right. And, I was standing outside and I was talking to my good friend Tom, and he was from Massachusetts and he ran a team out there. And I was telling Tom, Tom, there's something in my house. And I was standing in my backyard and my kids had a swing set and there was 2 swings. All of a sudden, John, one of them started moving and picking up speed. Oh. And then it stopped abruptly. And I'm telling Tom what's going on. And all of a sudden, in my head, I can hear, I'm going to do what I want around your daughter, and there's not a damn thing you can do to stop me.
Oh, no. Oh, wow.
So what I'm getting at is it's hard enough to fight something, and it's really hard when you can't see it.
Yeah.
And so Larry and I enlisted a friend of ours who's a psychic, and enlisted another friend of ours who I'm not going to mention their names because the one psychic who actually helped us do this does not want to have to do this anymore. So,
gotcha. Yeah, that's
she. She asked to remain nameless in the whole thing, but Larry and I performed a cleansing in the house.
Good.
And it was the most wild thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Prior to this, our interactions with people with juju powers are extremely limited. We're just a bunch of fat dudes that like to go to cemeteries.
Right.
But now we're listening to this woman astrally project into Dan's house from a different state, describe Dan's house, and then tell us
to a T
she's in, to a T. Describe what room she's in and what she's doing to the spirit. That's and amazing. Watch nothing affect the house. So, she's like, I'm chasing him in the living room. Okay. He's up against the wall. And then the blinds press into the window like something's leaning against it. The little twisty stick to open the blinds start going back and forth. And we're just like, what the hell?
Yeah. She's pushing him into the wall, and you're hearing a thud against the wall, and there's nobody.
You can hear footsteps going around the house, and it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, right.
And what had happened is the way the spirit was getting back and forth from the cemetery to my house is somehow it had opened a portal in the basement. Mm-hmm. So I had to close that portal. Well, I'm here to tell you, John, and I don't know if your listeners are going to believe it or not. And if you're not there, it's very hard to believe. Larry and I saw shit flying around that basement, and we were the only ones down there. And
tell them the best part.
Yeah. What?
So
the best
Larry,
part?
it gets better. It gets better.
Unbeknownst to me, Larry had ran upstairs because the reception on his phone that he was talking to our other friend that's a psychic was not getting it in the basement. So he had to run upstairs here so that he could talk to her. I did not hear him leave. And I was doing what I had to do to close the portal. And I can remember at the time I knelt down and I was doing the prayer to, close this portal.
Yeah.
And it felt very overwhelming. It felt like everything was coming in on me. And all of a sudden I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I thought it was just Larry having my back. And I continued. And then all of a sudden, everything that was flying around just drops. It's totally calm in that basement. Just then I hear from upstairs, Larry go, "Hey, you got to get up here. We got to get it out of here." And I turn around and I'm alone. There's nobody there. But yet somebody put their hand on my shoulder.
I wouldn't talk about that one. I'll talk about the other one.
Well, but that was a different time. That was when we tempted fate again. And another thing had followed us here.
No,
the thing about the hand. Well, the thing about the hand is that, I've talked to a lot of friends that are psychics or what, they're like, well, it could have been your grandfather. It could have been St. Michael. It could have been Jesus himself. Who knows? I'd like to think it was my grandfather standing at my side, making sure I had the strength. I'd like to think maybe it was St. Michael that came down and said, "You can do this. We're going to get through it." I don't know, but all of a sudden I had the strength to finish, and I thought it was Larry. It wasn't. He was gone.
At the time, Dan and I had just done a cemetery restoration, and there were two spirits that were following me around as guides, as thanks for doing the restoration. And a friend of ours said that those two were in the house that night looking out for us. I think it was them that was there behind you.
And it could have been.
So, and they were, I don't remember if they were Union or I think they were Union soldiers from the
Union Civil War soldiers.
Oh, sure.
They went back quite a ways, but no, I'm talking about the end of the night. Tell that part.
It was actually once she got it out of the house, we shut the door and it sounded like a fight going on out on my front lawn.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the house was calm. There wasn't, that was the night you're talking about, Larry, was the second time and it didn't follow me home. It followed my daughter home.
No, it's the same one.
And
it's the same one. It is the same.
Anyway, we were doing, well, I disagree, but whatever. The point of the matter is that we did the blessings. We got whatever it was out of here. Yeah. And I said, if you're gone, give us a sign.
Okay.
And what happened, Larry?
We're in the basement and it feels like the house jumped a foot. To the point where like our knees buckle.
That's crazy.
Like we're like, ugh. And I go, the hell was that?
And Dan looks at him and goes, "I guess it left."
I guess it left. Boom. Yeah. Well,
and it was done.
I've never felt a house jump underneath me since, so I can say that.
You guys, again, I tell this to a lot of my guests, but this is one of the greatest stories I've heard, and you guys are just really brave to go through that. I mean, that's great.
Well, the thing is, John, is you don't have a choice. If you don't do it, it's going to stay here, and it's going to continue to wreak havoc in your family and attack your daughter, who has, no idea what's going on. And when I do lives or when Larry and I talk to people about ghost hunting and stuff, I often bring up the fact is, look, it's happened to us. It can happen to anybody, no matter how well you think you're stealing yourself. It can happen. Right. And you got to remember, if you have a family at home, you have, I have a wife and 2 kids. Those are 3 people that didn't sign up for this. He and I signed up for it.
Of course not. Yeah. Right.
But it now comes home and wreaks havoc on their lives.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You have to.
No, you don't.
You have to steal it up. And sometimes you got to just man the fuck up and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we did.
And man, fuck up you did. And God bless you on that one, because that's awesome. See, the funny thing is, I don't have a lot of paranormal happen to me. I have little things here and there with shadow people. The only thing that I can say, and I've told this story before, is the scariest. Well, it's not really paranormal. It was sleep paralysis, basically. Okay. But to this day, I don't know why this happened. So now, just to let you know, I was under a lot of stress at the time. Okay. So I was sleeping in my bed and I wake up and there's this black mist lowering towards my face. And as soon as it comes to my face, I could see like an old hag, for lack of a better word. And I couldn't move. I'm just frozen, right? But I don't know what happened or how I did this. With all my strength, I turned to the side to get away so I wouldn't have her face just staring at me, right? I turned to the side, and this is where it gets really weird. I started uttering like Latin that I don't even know Latin. I was like, da, and it was like this force field came out of my body, and I could hear in the kitchen like a body falling, like someone trips and hits we have a hardwood floor. I was like, boom, 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 boom. And here's the weird thing. So my wife, if she hears a mouse fart, she wakes up. She's still sleepy. Okay. So I wake up, I'm all shaking and stuff like that. Yeah, she slept right through it. And I'm all shaken, right? And I go and do the stupid horror movie thing, right? I go to the kitchen. Duh. Of course you're gonna do that. Who knows?
Where's the sound of the murderer coming from? The kitchen? Well, I better go by myself.
I better go in the kitchen. So I walk towards
Let's go unarmed.
Right. I don't got nothing. So I go towards the kitchen, and this is what it's kind of funny, but weird at the same time. So my wife bought this. We're big for Halloween when we deck our house out, right? And my wife had this doll she got at a garage sale. It was of a witch. It was a really ugly doll. And I remember when my wife brought it home, I said, "This is a really ugly doll. I don't like it. Please put it back to where you got it from." My wife goes, "Oh, honey, you're being silly." All right. And when I would eat, kind of back up a little bit, when I would eat breakfast in the morning, this doll was right in front of me when I'd eat breakfast, just like staring at me, like creep me out, right? Yeah. And so I go into the kitchen, and in the middle of the floor is the doll laying in the middle of the floor, and it was on a shelf on the wall. So it was like somebody grabbed the doll and threw it, right? So fast forward, I'm freaking out. I tell my wife this, and I go to a psychic, a friend of a friend of a friend, and she says, "Well, let me see the doll." And I said, "Fine." I show it to her, and she goes, "Oh, well, here's your problem. You pissed the doll off. It's cursed. There's a spirit in here." And I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "There's an angry spirit. Don't worry, I will take care of it." And I said, wait. How did I speak Latin and do all this shit? And she goes, "Oh, you must be touched." And I said, "Well, touched? Well, okay." She says, "There's certain people," and she was talking about past lives and everything. So she goes, "Maybe in your past life you were a priest, or maybe in your past life you were some type of druid or some type of magical person, and they just came forward to protect you from this." And so the funny thing is, out of all this is, that's never happened again. I still don't, like I said, I can't speak a word of Latin, It's never happened again. She took the doll, she took care of it. My wife never, ever has asked about that doll. She has never said, "Hey, honey, where's that doll I bought?" She has never asked once about it. Yeah, she never asked once about it, and she's never asked about it since. So, I approached the subject with her, and I said, "Hey, hon, did you know about that doll and stuff? Kind of what happened?" And she was just like, "Yeah, okay." But my wife's she's very sensitive to certain things, so she doesn't like to talk about curses or anything. She just likes to leave it lie. What I'm saying? Like people like that, like if I don't bring it up, it's not going to manifest, right? So yeah, that's the only real experience that shook me and really upset me to the core, So,
When
but
you
what you
started your
guys have gone
story
through,
and you're talking about
unbelievable.
the mist coming down on you, I could have swore this
Yeah.
was going to be a Dan Aykroyd type story. And then as soon as you said hag, I decided this is not that same
Right?
type of story. This
No,
is going somewhere else.
I tell that story. People are like, "Oh, really?" Well, no, sorry. Awesome. So, if you guys have a few more minutes, how about we get into a
Absolutely.
topic that I think that you will really like? Okay. And
Let's
Larry,
do
would
it.
you like to share the good news now or later
We can do it
about
now.
your
Sure.
unveiling? Okay.
So, Dan and I have been doing this for 13 years now. All of our I don't want to call it success, but all of our luck has been thanks to us being kind of, nose to the grindstone and just going and going and going and going and going.
Stay the course.
Stay the course, and it's all going to work out eventually. We are now to the point to where someone else has seen what we can do, and they think that they can guide us and get us to that next level. So Dan and I are now being represented by the RK Entertainment Agency. So that's paranormal conferences, college lectures, paranormal events. And the guy that runs the agency, his name is Rich. He's a really awesome dude. He represents Dustin Perry, Jason Hawes, Sherry, Richard Estep, Shane Pittman, Diet Renee. He represents a lot of the movers and shakers in the paranormal. And he looked at us and he said, "Yeah, I'll take you too." So
no,
it's still a little wild. Thank you. It's like, wow, okay. Hasn't really quite set in yet, but I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing where this relationship goes.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
For what we do, it's a chance for us to bring the show to new crowds. We're both historians. It's a chance for us to bring our research on the Black Hawk War to new people that have never even heard of the war. So, it opens up so many doors and people to see what we do and can be like, yeah, I like that.
But as much as we need to thank Rich for taking us on, there's someone else that we need to thank, and that's Natalie Jones, because she took a big chance on a couple fat guys from the Midwest that said, "Hey, we got a show that we think you might like for Paraflix."
Yeah.
Paraflix was very new at the time, and I mean, if you haven't heard about Paraflix, then you're living under a rock, because Natalie Jones is one of the hardest working ladies in the paranormal. Right. I often tease her, and Larry can vouch. Every time I talk to her, I'm like, "Natalie, I swear to God, you never sleep." She is always pushing people on Paraflix. I mean, the lady is, her and Patty and Mike, they're living it every day.
Is Natalie's partner in Paraflix.
Yeah.
So,
and she took a chance on us.
Never heard of Natalie, everyone's heard of Patty.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. At this point, though, I don't know how you wouldn't have heard about Natalie, because
she's
they're a couple of the nicest, greatest people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And Natalie always says, we're the Paraflix family, and they live it, and we are family. So thank you to Rich, thank you to Natalie and Patty and Mike. It's been a great ride, and it's not over yet. So
no, I look forward to the future, and I look forward to seeing you guys grow bigger and bigger. And I don't know, maybe you'll have a little guy like me on your show once in a while.
We have guest investigators all the time.
All the time, man.
All the time. Someone will approach us to be like, "Hey, I can get you into this spooky mansion, and they'll let you film there." And we go, "Okay, you want to be in it? I can be in it."
They're like, "Yeah."
You got us the
Absolutely.
location. Of course you can be in it.
And that's
That
the
is
difference
great.
with Expedition Entity is we have guest investigators that may have never investigated anything, and
Sure.
they're there because they want to
Yeah.
be there, and we're okay with that.
Right.
That's
Especially
great, guys.
if
It couldn't.
you own the building or if you work in the building and the spirits are
Yeah.
comfortable with you. If you want to stay and investigate,
Mhm.
join us, because the spirits are far more likely to interact with the familiar face than a bunch of faces that they don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I couldn't be happier for you guys. It's well deserved,
Thank you.
and I look so much forward to this. So let's get into our topic tonight, because
Sure.
I think I found a good topic for you guys.
Mm.
We're going to be in your neck of the woods, and we're going to be in Illinois. So I have already done the top 10 scariest places in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
We did a paranormal road trip of the Midwest. Now I thought, let's go to Illinois. This is kind of your backyard and stuff like that, right, guys? And you guys do a little bit of different stuff and everything like that. But first of all, I'm going to start with the first question. It's a quick fire question. And again, added experiences or anything you would like to add. What city in Illinois is the scariest city? I'm going to give you three choices: Chicago, Galena, or Alton. Which do you think is the scariest city and why in Illinois?
Which one do you want the answer first?
Whatever you want to do.
I'll go first.
I would.
However you guys want to say.
Oh, Dan, you want to go
Yeah,
first?
go ahead. I would say, let me, and then Larry can bring it home because he's been a lot more places than I have in all those spots. Although we've never been to Galena or Alton, so Chicago definitely because of the number of haunted places. I mean, you've got the old Biograph Theater. You got where the St. Valentine's Massacre happened, that you still hear the shots and the groaning. You have Resurrection Mary, who's one of the oldest hauntings documented ever. You have where the ship sank. Yep, Harpo Studios, which incidentally,
Congress.
I was just going to talk about the ship that sank in the Chicago River, where Harpo Studios was the morgue for all those bodies.
Right.
Stop and think of all the shipwrecks that have happened in Lake Michigan that were Chicago bound. Chicago.
Let's call it the way it is. There's a lot of gunfire and murder in Chicago.
Right?
Yes.
It just is what it is. There's a lot of people that get shot there.
It's
and
the
that's
fifth
tragic.
largest.
And those people have tragic deaths, and they're probably going to hang around.
It's the fifth largest city in the United States, and it's going to have, I've been thinking this for a long time, and I was going to say it in our speech. We spoke at the Rockford Paranormal Conference last weekend, and I was going to say this, and we ran out of time, and I couldn't, but I'll say it here. Everything that we're involved in as paranormal investigators revolves around death and tragedy. We're not going to the nursing home where grandma had a full life and everything was pleasant and she died peacefully in her sleep. We're investigating, people that died tragically, that were murdered or, taken way before their time, or, a car accident scene, or, whatever. I mean, up in your neck of the woods, John, you got Ed Gein that killed how many people, and
Yep.
you got the Ed Gein Museum up there that our friend Darren says is just haunted as hell. Things. It's things like that we focus on death, and the problem is you focus on death too much, and you can forget that you're the one that's living, and you need to balance that out. And
that being said, if any of your listeners have a haunted retirement home where people passed peacefully, I still want to check it out.
I would be more than happy to see if grandma did. We'll come back and talk to Larry.
Right. Now, Ethel, could you please give us your recipe for baked beans? Oh, bacon.
Cross the rods for bacon.
Brown sugar.
Move them apart for ham.
Now, do you use baked beans or double baked beans? Yes, that's perfect.
So I think Larry's in
Chicago.
agreement.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Alton is, without a doubt, an incredibly haunted city. No one can
It's
say
a river
otherwise.
city.
Yeah.
It's a river city.
It's a river
Every
town.
building in the town is haunted. Ashmore's not that far away. But in terms of like scary, I haven't seen anything or heard of anything that's downright scary. Same with Galena. Galena's very haunted. The DeSoto is a very haunted building. But is it
It's the
scary?
It's
Not
the
really.
history that's involved. And that's what, a lot of investigators do and a lot of investigators don't. And I'm not saying either way is right or wrong, but it's the history that's involved in those old, Galena and Alton are river towns. Chicago's a lake town. I mean, they're all waterways. How many thousands of people have passed through those waterways over the, centuries? And,
to continue answering the
hauntings.
question that Dan so rudely interrupted me,
Stop it.
Chicago. That's all I wanted to say.
I said I think you would have agreed.
Chicago's too big to not choose it.
You guys are right on the mark. This is from one of my sources. They said Chicago is, and I've done episodes on Lincoln Park Zoo, Bachelor's Grove, Congress Plaza Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I've done all episodes on there, and Congress Plaza Hotel by far is the one I would like to go to. I don't know if you know a lot about that. That's where a woman threw her kids out the window.
They're so anti-paranormal. It is so crazy.
Crazy.
They want nothing to do with it.
Congress Hotel doesn't want anybody in there.
Right.
That's funny because when I was doing my research, that's what I got the feeling like. They were like, yeah, right.
We've reached out and have always been shot down. We've had other friends reach out. They've been shot down. You could go in there and film and roll the dice, but for what we do, we have to have permits signed, releases signed. They're not going to do it. They don't want to do it. So it's a shame, but it's their building. So.
So that's awesome. So let's move on to the next one here. This is from a source called Only in Your State. And you guys tell me if you agree or disagree again, or maybe there's a new one you guys want to talk about, or you haven't been to these ones, would like to. So according to Only in Your State, that's the source website, the most haunted places in Illinois are the first one, Greenwood Cemetery, the second one, McPike Mansion, and the third one, Woodstock Opera House. So, agree, disagree, got something new that you'd like to add, or
I'm going to disagree with all three.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying all three are not haunted. Okay. We've had a lot of interactions with the Woodstock Opera House. I know it's haunted, but in terms of being one of the most haunted locations, I've been to locations that and total amount of activity just blows it away. And the one that I'll bring up first is the Tinker Swiss Cottage in Rockford, Illinois.
Yep.
Robert Tinker built this home for his family. And there's like 9 of them, if you include the extended family and some of the servants and whatnot. They're all dead. They all still live in the house. You are investigating an entire family that is living in their house in the afterlife.
And 98% of their belongings are still in that house. It's one of the most complete collections,
hairbrushes, bedding
in the United States.
Their stuff. And
I haven't heard of this one. I'll be honest.
It's incredibly active, active. So,
so just describe what do you mean by active? Like,
so,
what's happening?
The numerous times we've gone there, there's very little electricity in the house. It was all gas lantern lit. That's how it was designed. And then of course the museum had to install some electricity, but it's not like they can rip out all the walls and put a bunch of wires in. So they were very selective to run individual bulbs into rooms to do the least amount of damage.
Okay.
So in one of the rooms, we have a K2 meter sitting on a chair, and there's nothing electrical even near it. The closest light bulb is 6 feet away. And even then, the light bulb isn't setting the K2 off when it's touching it. This K2 is hitting yellow, orange, going up to red sometimes, just sitting in this chair. That is the favorite chair of the mom, whose kid's bedroom that is. Robert Tinker, he has no problem speaking to you over speaker devices. Sam, the director of the museum, told us a story, a newspaper story from way back in the day. Robert Tinker scaring a guy walking down the train tracks, but it was never confirmed that it was him. So, she tells us a story and she goes, Robert, was that you? And over the SB7, he goes, yes, it was me. Clear as day.
Clear as day.
Oh, wow.
Clear as day.
I love that.
We did in our episode for Tinker, we did a double dowsing rod session in the barn. And Dan is talking to one spirit with his dowsing rods with a very distinct crossing pattern. And Sam is talking to a different spirit with a distinct crossing pattern. Sometimes they'd cross together to answer the same question, but differently. Sometimes one would answer and one wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it would go back and forth and back and forth. And then the weirdest thing is we were able to get Robert Tinker to confirm how they move around the house through portals. And he confirmed where the portals were. And it's in the locations where it's either A, the strongest activity, or B, people get lightheaded when they walk through it.
Yeah.
And he said he could
Robert
walk through
was
the
very
portal.
scientific.
Right. He could walk through the portal and he'll appear anywhere in the house, and that's how he beats you to the room you're going to.
That's amazing. I'm going to have to do an episode on this. Is that okay, guys, if I do an episode on that?
Absolutely.
In October, we're going to be on Good Day State Line. It's one of the Rockford news channels. We're doing a segment at Tinker. So, they'll be there filming for, an hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what they're going to do with the segment, but we're going to investigate and we're going to show how cool the place is.
Am I right or wrong? I swear you guys did McPike, right? You did the McPike mansion. No?
Nope. Because of what we do and how we do it, there are a lot of locations that either A, don't want to sign the paperwork, or B, we just can't afford to do it.
Sure.
Because everything we do is all self-funded. It's out of our pockets.
Yeah, it's he and I, and that's it.
So, in order to film an episode there, sometimes it takes 16 plus hours to film.
Oh,
and some locations, they give you a hard time about closing down for a day. Ideally, we'd like 2 because it's a very long day when you do it in one, but trying to get them to close for 1 day is tough. 2 is impossible.
Yeah.
So some locations you're just like, well, we're not interested. Okay.
Yeah. Like one of my guests, she does all these paranormal road trips and everything like that I had on last time. And she was telling me like, when she was filming some stuff, it's not like you go in there and bang, here's the ghost, and I'm out in a couple hours and I'm grabbing a beer at the bar. No, that might be your 5th day you're there. And maybe they're lucky you can be there 5 days.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you guys are absolutely right. They're like, hey, let's wrap this up. It's a couple hours.
You got 1 day.
Hours. Yeah, you got 1 day.
Yep.
And that's right.
And we conduct interviews. There's B-roll to get, drone footage. There's daytime and nighttime B-roll. And that all takes place before the actual investigation. There's like 8 hours of work before we even get to talk to a single ghost.
Pardon me.
And then you have to hope that the ghosts are like, okay, I'll talk to these guys. Otherwise, everything else has been, pointless. Which we've never had a problem, but when Dan and I, we do the interviews, our cast doesn't have to show up for that. The casting call is at 7 p.m. That's when they show up. By the time they get there, Dan and I have already been working
We've been there
for 9
10
hours. 10 hours.
Wow.
So, we show up at
that's
10
the
a.m. to start
behind-the-scenes
setting
stuff,
up.
right?
Sometimes I leave my house at 8 a.m. to go to Dan's house to go to the location. So, by the time we start the investigation, it's already a 12-hour day for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm definitely going to do an episode of Robert Tinker. Thank you guys for sharing that. That's awesome.
Sure.
You heard it here first, folks. That's an awesome place.
Sure.
All right. So are you guys into cryptids? Should you any cryptids? If you don't, I can skip that part.
No, not
cryptids?
so much me.
Not really.
I've encountered one, and it was weird. It was a Beast of Bray Road type cryptid. I was actually driving home from Broadhead, Wisconsin. It was like 4 a.m. And out that way, it's farm roads. It's a 2-lane road, and it's just fields everywhere. I'm just driving along, and I happened to look to the right because something caught my attention, and this gigantic figure standing against the field fence that is double the height of the fence, and most field fences, Dan, are what, 4-ish feet, give or take?
Yeah.
Probably.
So this thing's, 7-8 feet tall. Its arms go down, up, and then hook down again. So it's kind of like one of these things.
Yeah.
And like, when I do evidence review, even before I hear it, the hair on my arm stand up. So I feel it before I hear it. And then I go back and I'm like, okay, what just triggered me?
Right.
Every sense in my body was on fire when I drove past this thing. And then, because I'm driving 60 miles an hour at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. I see it, and then I'm done. Yeah. I'm still driving. I'm left to try to figure out what this is. And before I forget what I encountered, I immediately hop on Facebook Live. My car is black. You can't even see me. I'm just talking about what I saw, what I experienced. And then I'm like, by the time I wake up tomorrow and then read the replies, someone's going to tell me what this was. And the consensus was, it was a creature similar to what the Beast of Bray Road is, which I believe Bray Road's not that far from there.
No.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not too far from there.
Not too far. So
it sounds to me like the Martini Mantis.
Yeah, I got caught up on you. So that's fine. We will go around cryptids and fine. But I have some urban legends for you guys that are in Illinois, and I want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear what you guys think, because these are supposedly urban legends in Illinois that people know well and talk about for years. So let's get right to that. So the first one is about a werewolf. And the werewolf is, I can find it right here. The werewolf is the Ramsey Cemetery werewolf of Effingham, Illinois.
I'm going to Effingham in 2 weeks.
Well, you better take some silver bullets, pal.
So this, let me tell you what people saw here. This is great because I love this legend. I love urban legends because they're so much fun. So let me read you a description.
Could you remind me what it was again? What it was called?
It's it's the werewolf of the Ramsey Cemetery and of Effingham, Illinois. And the werewolf, I'll read this description that they say. A werewolf hiding in a nearby caves and a spooky man with red eyes and a black cape are just two of the legends surrounding Ramsey Cemetery in Effingham. Both the black cape man and the werewolf reportedly have origins in the occult activity that is supposed to have taken place in the rock shelters near the cemetery. So there you go. We got a black cape guy with a werewolf. I don't know. You guys tell me.
Immediately mentioning a cult makes me think that it's sensationalized.
Sure.
The occult part
Count
is
Dracula and his puppy.
Well, sure. The occult part is probably true. Even where Dan's at, there was a crazy amount of occult activity.
And that's actually been documented.
Right. So the fact that,
yeah.
Maybe there was a dude in a wolf costume trying to instill fear, or maybe it was just a really hairy guy. I mean, there's a bunch of hairy
Might have
guys.
been.
Yeah, he hasn't shaved.
One
for a
of the
while.
three of us is a very hairy guy. So you never know.
Yeah,
Dan could be a
you
werewolf.
are, Larry.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Maybe he had a few too many. Howled at the moon. I hear you.
Sure. But I mean, from stories that I've heard about werewolves and modern culture and film culture and whatnot, werewolves usually just don't stop at being seen once or twice.
Sure.
It's a carnivorous animal. There's probably going to be a lot more stories, livestock related stories.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And if those don't exist, it makes you think, okay, is this a werewolf or is this just a Greek dude? Which is a joke. I've got nothing against Greek people. It's a stereotype. I'm sorry, but
there goes my Greek audience. Thanks.
I'm so sorry.
Exactly. Good job, Larry.
Nico Demopolis, I'm so sorry. But
so
I think it's one of those legends to where it probably started off as a joke, dude. Or maybe there wasn't occult people, and it came to life on its own.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. So these are my two favorite ones. I picked these two because I know you guys are probably going to be like, why'd you pick these two, John? But I love these because these are actually fun ones that, I don't know, maybe they happen, but it's a great urban legend. So the second one is Vanishing Man. The urban legend says a man long ago, of course they don't tell you when, died at a bus stop in Egypt, Illinois, and still continues to board the bus today, but vanishes when the bus crosses a bridge on its usual route. Guys know this one?
I've never heard of it, but it's much like the Resurrection Mary story.
Yeah.
She died on the road, and she's actually gotten into cabs only to, the cab driver to turn around and nobody's there.
Yep.
I mean, I believe that one's more tangible than the werewolf one, definitely.
Yeah. This one.
So that one I think
supposedly
could have credence.
Okay. This one too, supposedly. So, at bus stops where they have like the cover and it's kind of opaque and you can lean against it and see like a person's body, but not clearly. Supposedly he will come up and put his hands and face against it and you'll turn around and see that and then he'll vanish. So that would be obviously scary.
Is Egypt
there and be like, what's that guy doing?
Is Egypt, Illinois, a big enough city to have a bus line, though?
That's what I just looked up.
So. I don't know. You guys
I'm
tell
not
me.
seeing an active bus stop in anywhere Egypt, Illinois.
How big is Egypt, Larry? How many people?
My
fact checker.
So I'm literally putting in Egypt, Illinois, and it's only bringing up Lake of Egypt. Now I'm pretty sure there might be a Little Egypt.
I think so. It's down at the end of Illinois.
No, it's just Lake of Egypt and Egypt Hills, which is an area. It might be a town, but Egypt Hills is a town, but there's no bus stop. So
I would have to say busted.
Yeah.
I would probably have to say just because of the fact that if he's still appearing in the bus stop and the bus stop doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I've heard of Egypt, Illinois, John, so I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Apparently Google has
there you go. So Dan, this one's for you, okay? Because you said you were a fireman and EMT right in Chicago in the 90s. Am I correct or am I off?
Yep. Nope. You're right on.
Okay. So this one is super funny. Please tell me you heard about this one, Dan, because this would make my day. This one is Homie the Clown. Homie the Clown, while I was researching Illinois urban legends, I noticed that many sites listed Homie the Clown as the creepiest in their state. After reading the explanation, after I read the explanation, this is what I got. Okay. Throughout the suburbs of Chicago in the 90s, there was a rumor going around elementary schools. There was a creepy man dressed as Homie the Clown. Yes. If you watch Living Color, I don't know if you guys even watched that show. I watched that. That was funny with Jim Carrey and some other guys in there. Driving around in a white van trying to lure kids in with candy and money. Damn.
That was actually John Wayne Gacy. That's an actual thing. He dressed as a clown.
Right.
Now, even if it's not Gacy himself, it would not be hard to think someone else should have did it.
If it was happening in the suburbs of Chicago, I wouldn't put it past them.
Right. You got to put your mind in the place of someone that's a little off. You know, clowns seem friendly to kids. You're giving them candy, ignoring the fact that you're in a really creepy minivan that says free candy spray paint on the side of it.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a reason why those stereotypical images appear in media is because it happened. They did that. So, I would say there's probably a shred of truth to that one.
Yeah,
probably.
That's scary.
I would agree. Never heard of it, John, when I was a paramedic in there, but
okay.
I could see it happening.
Right.
Yeah, because I know Gacy. Yeah, and what he did was
fun fact. My ex-girlfriend's uncle was a almost Gacy victim. He was a teenager at the time, so way back when. And him and his dog were invited over by Gacy for dinner. So he's in the house. Gacy would not let the dog inside, so he tied the dog up outside. Gacy and this kid walk into the house alone together. Gacy closes the door. Soon as Gacy closes the door, the dog freaks out, just barking and barking and barking. Yeah. And finally, Gacy kicks this kid out because the dog's drawing too much attention.
Oh,
and then come to find out that
dog saved his life.
And then there was a book, which for the life of me, I can't remember what it is right now, where he was interviewed about it, about being a potential victim, which is just
that's crazy.
It's crazy that a dog literally saved his life.
So now I got to tell my Jeffrey Dahmer story. Okay. This did not happen to me, but it happened to my cousin in Milwaukee. So he worked at the chocolate factory. My cousin and his friend worked at the chocolate factory Dahmer worked at, and they worked next to each other. Okay.
Wow.
My cousin's friend was gay. So what happened was, really quickly. So my cousin tells me this story, and it's really still hard for him to tell him. And his friend almost became a victim of Dahmer. Like,
wow,
very close. Like, really close. So what happened was, and the funny thing about Dahmer at this chocolate factory, he was just a guy. Like, everyone said, it's Jeffrey. They call him Jeffrey or Jeff.
I mean, Jeff's a little weird, but he's a nice guy.
Yeah, he eats lunch by himself, but he doesn't really bug anybody. So my cousin's friend was one time talking to him, and my cousin came, up to him after, and Jeffrey Dahmer kind of looked mad, and he kind of stormed off. Okay. And my cousin goes to his friend, hey, what was that all about? He goes, oh, Jeffrey asked me out for a date. I said, no, I didn't feel like it. And so flash forward to all this stuff coming out, right? So my cousin, so Jeffrey Dahmer quit the chocolate factory and whatever. Nobody knew what was going on with him. Whatever. It happens all the time, right? Guys quit and whatever. So they're in the lunch break room, right? All of a sudden, newsflash, Jeffrey Dahmer. And they show the barrels going out that have all the victims in it and stuff. And my cousin is sitting there next to his friend, His friend just turns pale white, nearly faint,
Yeah.
and
I believe
just
it.
books it out of there. Just
believe it.
Run. So obviously my cousin's really worried about him and everything like that. And he calls him up and he says, it gets worse, by the way. He calls him up and he says, hey, I'm
the cousin
really,
called Jeffrey Dahmer.
Not Jeffrey Dahmer. Called by his friend up.
It's like
called his friend up. Hey, Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, were you gonna kill me? What? I thought we had something.
Yeah, what's going on? So he calls his friend up to make sure he's okay and everything like that. And he said, you know what happened? He makes it worse. And he goes, I don't know. What's worse? He says, well, I went to the bar. So Jeffrey Dahmer used to go to this bar in Milwaukee. That's what gave most of his victims. So my cousin's friend went to the bar that night. It's a gay bar. Went to it just to get a drink and hang out. There's Jeffrey, right? So Jeffrey comes up to him and says, hey, I don't know, Stan, or whatever his name was. Hey, Stan, how about coming back to my apartment? We'll watch a movie, just hang out, have a good time. Well, what happened was my cousin's friend was kind of drunk and he was about to go with them when this one of these guys that eventually became one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims said, hey, I'm going home with you. What the fuck? and then my cousin's friend was like, oh, if you already have a date, that's okay. Jeffrey Dahmer's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And the guy that walked out with him that night was one of his victims. And
wow.
So he almost twice got Jeffrey Dahmer into his apartment.
Well, at least, John, he didn't go over and have dinner and survive because God only knows what he would have eaten.
Well, my question is, when you think about it, these stories sound just out of this world.
Yeah.
But how many people did this really happen to?
Yeah.
How many people had this
could have been
close call with death
a victim
and never realized it?
Yeah. Really.
How many guys were in that bar going, hey, you're a really good looking dude. Let's go back. And Dahmer's like, oh, I got to do in the fridge right now. I don't want to deal with this. Another time.
Some spring cleaning. Damn.
Right. And meanwhile, that guy almost became a name on a list.
Later.
But, it's like, how many people had such a close call with death and never realized it until it was too late?
Never realized it.
There's a statistic out there, and out of all the years that you're living in America, you will encounter a serial killer at least 7 times in your life that you had no idea that they're a serial killer.
Yeah. I've been friends with Dan for 13 years, and I'm sure I've experienced a serial killer many times over that 13 years.
You've gone into the basement and gone, what's that smell, Dan? That's a really weird smell down here.
A lot of bleach in your basement.
I do have that freezer that I won't let anybody open.
He's got this freezer that's got a padlock on it. The bottom's all rusted out and red.
Yeah. Let me just tell you both something right now. If I decided to ever become a serial killer, I would be the worst motherfucker you'd ever know, and I would make Jeffrey Dahmer look like a schoolgirl.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, you might as well go all the way.
Absolutely.
Don't.
I want them to rank me up there like Hitler.
Right. Don't half-ass it. You gotta go.
No. If you're gonna go, you better become become committed and jump in all ass.
We're in the NFL of murdering people now.
We're in the NFL of murdering people,
right.
Absolutely.
If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. So there ain't no bodies
This show
here.
took a turn.
It just went dark.
It just went really dark.
Well,
dark
we gotta
Dairyland Frights
before John gets murdered.
That Dan Norvell is going to kill someone. I've been outside the whole time. No, but you stop and think. Just just a little chance, just a little bit of luck saved those people's lives. And
Absolutely.
Somebody was watching over them.
A drunk dude that really wanted to get it in, a dog, just things that are out of your control 100%.
Yeah.
That dog could have laid down and said, I'm going to wait here.
And shut up and never seen that boy again.
That drunk guy could have been like, oh, I wanted to go home with the cute dude. Oh, well, back to shots. No.
Yeah. Crazy.
No.
Yeah. So before I end the show, I got one more question. Dan, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Your bucket list, which you want to investigate. So give me the one place you'd be like, that is my dream place. I want to investigate if I could.
Gettysburg.
Gettysburg. That's a good one. The entire place or a specific battle? Just the entire place. Wow.
I would just love to go out there and spend like a month. Yeah. Gettysburg for me.
There. Yeah. Larry?
Gettysburg is also on my list, but in terms of, having an interesting answer, I'll go to number 2. And in all honesty, I feel like if you spun a globe and stuck your finger anywhere in Europe, it would be a great time.
Yeah.
There's just every country has such really deep, rich history that spans centuries.
Yes.
You could go to Rome and get Roman legions marching around. You could go to Germany and get Germanic tribes warring each other. Every country has something that is centuries of war.
Can you imagine
blood history? Blood history.
I mean, could you imagine, and they never talk about it, but can you imagine how haunted Auschwitz must be?
You are not allowed to do it there.
You are not allowed to talk about ghosts there.
No.
Really?
You are not allowed to. The tour guides are very
absolutely not.
Yeah. My sister, my cousins, my aunt and uncle went over there and they brought up the topic talking about me and they're like, we don't talk about that here.
Nope.
Very against it.
Can you imagine though? I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of people, and it was grisly and then they were just, and I can't imagine probably a more haunted place on the earth than that.
No, that being said,
you'll never find out.
I'm sure there are old smaller camps that were tore down that are now just like an empty field. You might be able to get some stuff if you can pinpoint that exactly. But in terms of the ones that are now, museums, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, right. Mine is a weird one. So you guys know about the catacombs under Paris, right?
Where
they put all the skulls and stuff. That's mine. Unfortunately, like Auschwitz, they will not let you go underneath anymore.
It's one of those locations where you spin the globe and you're like, Paris. Oh, I know where to go.
People have been lost in those catacombs to never be seen again.
Correct.
It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
There is a thing on YouTube where this idiot, and I say idiot appropriately, who just grabbed a camcorder, went down there by himself, started, and you can see this, it's just insane. So you see him filming, then all of a sudden he must hear something and he drops his camcorder and he runs. And you can just see him running into the dark. And I'm thinking two things. One, granted, it's scary as shit down there. Give me a break. But you're running into the dark without a flashlight in the catacombs of Paris? Like,
how did he post the footage if you left the camera behind?
It dropped.
Well, it was a found footage thing.
Found.
It was found.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Oh, have you seen that? Do you think that's fake then? Okay.
I got to be honest, John. I think him and a buddy set it up, and because like you said, why would you run into the complete dark if you're terrified when that camera was the only way you had sight?
But what are the odds of the camera landing in just the right way to see you running away?
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
But it's
Exactly.
yeah.
I don't buy it. I call bullshit.
Yeah. One little thing I always tell people, I almost bought the Amityville Horror House.
Really?
Yes. So
Nice.
this is a quick funny story. So it's gone up for sale many times.
Sure.
It's a gorgeous house. I mean, just gorgeous. So it went up for sale because I always look at these things because that's one of my goals. Near the end of my life, I keep telling my wife I want to buy a haunted house. And she's like, yeah, you go ahead, hon. You live in it by yourself because I'm not doing it. So the Amityville came up for sale. And like I said, it's just a gorgeous house. So I called the realtor and I said, hey, I want to buy it. What's the whole thing? And the lady goes, are you a paranormal person? Are you going to? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And she goes, I'm going to save you the trouble. It is not haunted. It's never been haunted. I've been doing real estate for 30 years. Multiple families have lived in this. So save your breath and your money. It's not haunted. It's a made up story. And she went on and on about she knew the I can't think of the names right now. The DeFeos. She knew them. She's like, oh, they were on drugs. They're in the mafia. They're the weirdest family ever. It's all BS. And I said, oh, I still want to come out and just look at it. She goes, sure, you can come out and look at it. So I flew out there and I looked at it. And it's just a regular house. It's beautiful. Everyone's done renovations probably, I don't know, countless times. So it's not the same.
Well,
They
and you also
changed
got to
the street
imagine,
sign,
some of
and
those
it's
families that did move into it, they probably had it blessed too.
Maybe.
Just to be
I don't
like,
know.
hey, listen, I've seen the movie.
Sure.
We're going to get Father McMurphy in here, and he's going to bless this place.
Oh,
And even
sweet
if there
Jesus,
was a
I'd be
ghost
more
here,
than happy to bless it.
The ghost is like, well, I'm out of here now. And then now
This
it's
is
a normal
no
house.
I'll come in and bless it with me vodka.
So yeah, that's my little claim to fame. And
That's
my wife,
awesome.
So I was putting the down payment on everything because I said I'm doing this. This is once in a lifetime thing. And unfortunately, my wife and kids. My kids were younger at the time, and my wife had a really good job, so she was like, "Well, hon, I don't want to take all the kids over there, and it's a huge house, so I don't know." And I'm like, "Oh, fine." So, but yeah, that was so funny when the lady
awesome.
knew I must have been paranormal because she was like, "Oh,
well,
God."
Only we would be excited about a house that goes on for sale. Like, yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, guys, I could talk to you for hours. This has been amazing.
Yeah, I think you
love
originally said this was like an hour-long show. And
yeah,
we're like
I'm
at an
sorry.
hour
I think
You don't worry about it.
on rolling.
Don't worry about it, man. We love this.
We're going to have a 3-hour show.
We're staying up all night. Get the caffeine.
We're going to have to make this a 6-part show. We'll release it 1 hour every day.
This is awesome. Again, I could talk to you guys for hours. Again, tell my audience, I will put all the links and everything out there so they can find you, but where can they find you, when they're just Twitter or where you guys are at?
So, the easiest way is to just Google Expedition Entity. When you do put the links out, we have a link tree that has like 20 links on it. You can find everything on there. But we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we've got our merch store. We're on the Paraflix, everything on Paraflix, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
IMDb.
IMDb. We're lightly on TikTok. I just don't know what to do with TikTok. We're there, but not really.
I don't want to do anything with TikTok anymore. That's just me.
We're most heavily on Facebook and Instagram. So, but yeah, if you use the link, you can find everything.
Yeah. If your listeners or your viewers want to reach out to us, send us a message on there. We'll get back to them.
Yeah. And if
So,
someone's listening and the
always
link isn't
go ahead.
available yet, you could just type in LINKTR.EE / expedition entity, and that'll take you right to the link.
It'll take you everywhere we're at.
And then you've got, our trailers, you've got a direct link to Paraflix, our speaking things are set up there, our merch store, everything we have is on one easy to find place.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much, guys. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
I've had a blast. And we always end the show like this. Say hi to your ghosts. So we're friendly. Hi, ghost. How you doing?
Hi, ghosts. Ghosts, let me go to sleep tonight. Don't wake me up.
And then stay spooky, guys. Thank you so much. You guys.
We will.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much.
Bye.